Frank Sutton is remembered by millions as the thunderous Sergeant Vince Carter, a character whose booming authority and comedic intensity defined Gomer Pyle, U.S.M.C. Yet behind that unforgettable presence was a deeply committed actor whose life was far more complex than his famous role suggested. Born Frank Spencer Sutton on October the 23rd, 1923, in Clarksville, Tennessee, he grew up during the hardships of the Great Depression, an era that shaped his discipline and resilience. From an early age, Sutton gravitated toward performance, finding confidence and purpose on stage even as the world around him struggled. Acting was not an escape for him, but a calling. He pursued it seriously, studying drama and refining his craft with determination. That seriousness never left him, and it would define both his greatest successes and, ultimately, the quiet pressures that followed him throughout his career. Education, ambition, and the impact of war. After high school, Frank Sutton's ambitions carried him to Columbia University in New York City, where he studied drama and honed his intellectual approach to acting. His education reinforced his belief that acting was a discipline requiring structure, preparation, and emotional honesty. However, like many of his generation, Sutton's life was interrupted by World War II. Though initially rejected by the Marine Corps due to colorblindness, he enlisted in the U.S. Army and served in the Pacific Theater with distinction. Participating in numerous assault landings, Sutton experienced firsthand the strain, fear, and responsibility of military life. These experiences deeply influenced him, instilling discipline but also leaving emotional and physical imprints. When he returned home, Sutton carried not only pride in his service, but also a quiet weight that would later inform the realism and intensity of his performances. Early acting career and hard-earned respect. Following the war, Sutton returned to acting with renewed focus, determined to build a career grounded in credibility rather than quick fame. Throughout the 1950s, he worked steadily in theater, film, and early television, earning respect as a reliable and versatile character actor. Appearances on programs like The United States, Steel Hour, and The Edge of Night showcase his dramatic range, while his role in the Academy Award-winning film Marty placed him alongside serious performers of the era. These roles did not make him a star overnight, but they established something more enduring: trust. Directors and fellow actors knew Sutton would arrive prepared, committed, and fully present. This reputation mattered deeply to him. Acting, in his view, was not about celebrity, but about craft. That mindset positioned him perfectly for the role that would change his life forever. Gomer Pyle, U.S.M.C., and cultural impact. Frank Sutton's casting as Sergeant Vince Carter in Gomer Pyle, U.S.M.C. in 1964 marked a defining moment in his career. The role demanded authority, comedic timing, and emotional restraint, all qualities Sutton possessed in abundance. His dynamic with Jim Nabors created a balance that made the show resonate with audiences across generations. While Carter appeared intimidating, Sutton infused the character with humanity, revealing compassion beneath discipline. His military background added authenticity, especially during a period when America's relationship with the armed forces was shifting. The show became a cultural touchstone, and Sutton's voice, posture, and presence entered the American imagination. Yet the success carried unintended consequences. The role was so iconic that it risked defining him entirely. While grateful, Sutton also felt the growing pressure of being permanently associated with a single character. Life after the sitcom spotlight. When Gomer Pyle, U.S.M.C. ended in 1969, Frank Sutton faced the challenge many television stars encounter: reinvention. He continued working steadily, appearing on the Jim Nabors Hour and various guest roles, but the industry increasingly saw him through the lens of Sergeant Carter. Rather than retreat, Sutton turned toward live theater, where he felt most alive as an actor. Dinner theater and regional productions allowed him to connect directly with audiences and stretch emotionally. He embraced demanding stage roles that required stamina, vulnerability, and constant travel. While audiences welcomed him warmly, the pace was relentless. Sutton rarely slowed down, driven by a belief that an actor must keep proving his worth. This determination, admirable on the surface, masked a growing physical toll that few around him fully recognized at the time. Family life and quiet priorities. Despite his commanding screen persona, Frank Sutton was known privately as a devoted family man. He married Toby Igler in 1946, beginning a partnership rooted in mutual respect and creativity. Toby's career as a television writer complemented Sutton's acting life, and their home was filled with thoughtful conversation and artistic exploration. Together, they raised 2 children, including their son, Joe Sutton, who would later become a respected playwright and professor. Frank took immense pride in his family, often describing fatherhood as his most meaningful role. Even during demanding periods of work, he remained emotionally present and deeply invested in his children's growth. This sense of responsibility extended beyond career ambition, shaping his choices and work ethic. Yet it also reinforced his reluctance to step away from work, believing his role as provider required constant motion. The hidden strain. Behind the energy to audiences, Frank Sutton appeared tireless, projecting strength and authority wherever he performed. Behind the scenes, however, his lifestyle was demanding. Years of smoking, irregular meals, and intense schedules gradually affected his health. Friends later recalled that Sutton often brushed aside fatigue or discomfort, treating it as part of the job. He carried himself with the same toughness he portrayed on screen, rarely expressing vulnerability. Medical warnings reportedly went unheeded, not out of denial, but out of fear of slowing down. Sutton believed momentum mattered, especially after television fame faded. He was determined not to be seen as expendable. This mindset, shaped by wartime discipline and professional pride, prevented him from prioritizing rest and treatment. The irony is painful. The discipline that built his career also made it difficult for him to listen to his body when it mattered most. The day the mystery began. On June 28, 1974, Frank Sutton collapsed in his dressing room in Shreveport, Louisiana, just moments before a stage performance. He was only 50 years old. The suddenness of his death shocked fans and colleagues alike, sparking decades of speculation. For years, rumors flourished, fueled by the lack of clear public understanding and the abrupt loss of a vibrant performer. What later became clear, however, was not a hidden scandal or unknown illness, but a tragic convergence of known risks. Sutton suffered a heart attack, the result of cumulative strain rather than a single event. The mystery surrounding his death endured largely because the signs had been subtle, ignored, or normalized. In truth, his passing reflected a long-term pattern of overwork, stress, and unaddressed health concerns rather than a sudden, inexplicable collapse. What the evidence now makes clear, with time, interviews, and biographical research, the picture of Frank Sutton's final years has become clearer. Doctors had reportedly advised him to slow down and undergo further cardiac evaluation, but professional commitments repeatedly took priority. Sutton feared losing momentum and relevance, concerns common among performers navigating post-television careers. The theater schedule he maintained required constant travel and nightly performances, leaving little room for recovery. Those close to him later expressed regret, not for hidden secrets, but for missed warnings. The mystery, once framed as something dark or unknown, is now understood as a familiar and sobering reality, a man pushing past limits out of dedication and identity. Legacy, lessons, and lasting respect. Frank Sutton's legacy is one of talent, discipline, and unwavering commitment to his craft. While the truth behind his death is painful, it also offers perspective rather than scandal. Sutton was not undone by excess or controversy, but by devotion taken too far. His story serves as a reminder that strength without rest can become vulnerability, and that even admired figures need care and balance. Audiences continue to remember him with affection, not for how he died, but for how fully he lived in his work. Sergeant Vince Carter endures as an iconic character, but Frank Sutton endures as something more meaningful, a serious actor, a devoted family man, and a performer whose passion never faded. The mystery, now understood, brings closure not through shock, but through truth, respect, and remembrance.